What do you mean discord on the way to the Super Bowl?
Because that's the way he's trying to sell a story. Because there isn't any. But in order to sell a story, you have to create a rhetoric. You have to create a story, and that's all he did. You're not talking about a team who hasn't made the playoffs in 5 years. You're not talking about a team who's missed the playoffs in any year. You know, maybe if you're talking about a team who had a great team, all these superstars, and missed the playoffs, and then you could say, man, there must be something going wrong. You're talking about a team that made the playoffs every year, but you have nothing else to talk about. You're in the offseason. You want to get your clicks. You want to make a crazy story. So you create a rhetoric, and nobody can stop you because you can say, anonymous source said this, and say whatever you want. You can say, anonymous source and unnamed person said this, and it's all good. Nobody's ever going to question it. But could you imagine a world where players didn't have to do press conferences and all you got was anonymous quotes from the locker room? Could you imagine that? Could you ever imagine that world? Will people respect that, or will people question everything? They'd say, oh, why couldn't he put his name on it? Every quote, every word, everything I say, everything we say as players, we put our name on it. We put our name on it. You could believe it as true because we said it. We had to put our name on it. We don't get a choice. But when you live in the new landscape of media, great reporters and great journalists have a hard time making a living because they can create great stories about guys, their backgrounds, about a competitive team that goes at it every day, Pete's philosophy, et cetera, but it wouldn't get a lot of clicks because it's not controversial enough. So to say that Pete has turmoil in the locker room and that guys don't like each other or guys don't like the quarterback, or there was one story somebody said the quarterback wasn't black enough, like these are jokes. We laugh at this in the locker room because it's a complete joke. But in the public, it's actually a story because nobody can question it. Nobody researches it. Nobody really asks the question. If you ask us, did anybody say Russell was black enough? Of course not. Nobody ever even thought that. It's hard enough being a black man in America. The question if somebody's black enough, you know? So it's just laughable. But I think it's tough to continue to deal with that. And nobody ever had facts. Nobody ever really do the research. This guy says, I did my research. I went to Seattle. I asked a few people questions. Well, we have our local guys and our local ladies here every day sitting in the locker room during the media period, sitting in the locker room every day, good, bad, or indifferent. Now, like any other family, do we have our arguments? Do we have our tough times? Of course. You know, if I took a snapshot of you and your husband or your boyfriend or your brother arguing, and I went on and said, oh my God, there must be discord in their family. That must be a terrible family. I'd be a fool because it's short-sighted. You know, but you take one snapshot of our locker room of a competitive environment with us on the field, and you create a whole story about it, and that's what's unfortunate.
Richard, to clear it up, what is your relationship with Russell?
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I mean, we're teammates. You know, it's like a family. It's like everybody else in the family. We fight for one another, just like I'm fighting for the other 52 guys out there. I'm fighting for him, and he's fighting for us. And we have a great appreciation for how tough our quarterback is and what he's played through. You know, last year he played through a number of injuries, and he's not doing that because, oh, man, I just got to go out there and it's a job, but he's doing that for the guys next to him, and we appreciate that. And, you know, we think he's a great quarterback. But it doesn't matter what we say because it doesn't matter what we say. I mean, at the end of the day, because we can say that to the cows come home, but one guy says he has a story and he's heard a rumor about this, about somebody down the way saying something, and that's the truth.
One of the claims in that story was that there's a perception that he's sort of treated with some level of favoritism. What's your take on that?
The same. Just a made-up story. Because you could literally say that about any team, any quarterback. You could say, well, the Patriots probably think Tom Brady gets treated better than everybody else. But it'd be a story, and it'd be a legitimate claim, and it'd be you're so sad, Mike. But you can make a legitimate claim. You can make this exact same story, just about any of the teams in the playoffs and a couple that weren't in the playoffs last year. Any competitive team that has a great offense and a great defense. Super Bowl teams, Atlanta and New England, freaking Green Bay. I guarantee you go to a practice in the middle of training camp and you mic'd everybody up. You wouldn't be able to produce that story. You wouldn't be able to produce that dialogue. You would never be able to produce that audio because that's what it takes. You know, we play a violent, adrenaline-infused game that takes everything you got. And in order to play it at a high level, you got to give everything you got. So to catch us on the field and try to make a story out of some nonsense like that is laughable.